I'd like to get now into today and the optimism and the strategy and the like. You have a quote in the book. It says, this is about the 1932 election, but I want to bring it up to today. The failure of conservative governance made it more or less inevitable that Democrats would win the 1932 election, but it was by no means certain that the victor would leave a lasting legacy. And when Bill Clinton came in to power in January 1993, the Democrats controlled both houses. And when he left, the Democrats had lost both houses and most of the states. He is seen only 10 years later as a hero, as a leader in the country, and you don't criticize him in the book, but you know there was at least a 2-year opportunity, and some would argue that there was more than that. And so the question is, if no one seized the moment or seized the opportunity in 1992 or 1993, given that it's possible it'll be the same cast of characters in 2008, why would one be more optimistic now?
So I'll give you my worries in a minute. Let me tell you reasons why things are different. First of all, the Democratic majority in the House right now. It's a paper-thin majority in the Senate, a Lieberman-thin majority in the Senate, because only a third of the senators were up for election. But the Democratic majority in the House is very different from the majority they had before the '94 election. The old Democratic majority was an uneasy coalition of often quite conservative Southerners and relatively liberal Northerners. The South is now is the only region that is now strongly Republican, and the new Democratic majority is much more cohesive than it was before. Nancy Pelosi is the first female speaker, but she's also arguably the most progressive speaker the House has ever had. I know a lot of people are very disappointed with what she's been able to get done, but if you just look at her positions, it is striking. The country is different. The issues that the Republicans were able to play on, race in particular, but other things, are just much diminished. Public opinion is much more liberal than it was in 1993, 1994. So we have the possibilities for getting something done. Healthcare. It was easier to scare people about healthcare in 1993 than about health reform than it would be now, because I think people now are much more convinced of the desperation of the situation. It's really amazing to go back and realize that the thrust of the defense against the Clinton healthcare plan was that our system is just fine, there are no problems. And I don't think that's going to fly this time. So the prospects are really, the possibilities are very great. Now, leadership. What do we know? Oh, and one more thing. I'm sorry, I want to say one more thing. There is a real progressive movement in the United States in a way that there was not 15 years ago. I look at what happened. There just wasn't a cohesive set of self-conscious movement behind Clinton. There was no agreement that we really needed healthcare. There wasn't an agreement on what the shape of it would be. And Clinton had no plan when he arrived in office. He didn't actually even make his first speech on what his plan would be until September 1993. This time around, you can see it's nothing like the Republican. It's nothing like the conservative movement. There's no, the money is not nearly as great. The institutions aren't as big, but there's this clear, cohesive sense of it, everything running from political activism to think tanks like Center for American Progress to the blogs have become very important, just as a sounding board in a way that the right has talk radio. Now at least the left has its own way of communicating, and the unions, particularly Andy Stern and the service workers, and these you can see the effect. The Democratic candidates have all been more or less told you have to have a detailed healthcare plan now, and have all fallen into line. It started with the John Edwards plan, and that has now essentially been matched by Obama and Clinton. You have the policy positions being espoused by the Democratic candidates are amazingly progressive, considering where we were just a couple of years ago. So all of that's good. Question is, what about what happens after? Assuming that there's a Democrat in the White House and 56 Democratic senators and 242 Democratic representatives, then what?